morning, Drew. We've decided we love your videos on our products, so we're gonna let you decide what happens with the next iPhone. Oh my god, seriously? Are you kidding? I get to decide? Yes, please, just tell us what to do. I want it to have USB-C? Done, we can do that. Wow, okay. I want the chassis to be made of titanium. Your wish is our command. Okay, cool. I guess I don't really use the ringer switch on my iPhone. We can get rid of the ringer switch? Absolutely. Wow, thanks, Tim. I'm really glad we're doing it this way. Yes, we're gonna put a slower USB-C port on the entry-level iPhone 15. Wait, we're going to replace the ringer switch with a solid-state ringer button. In fact, all the volume buttons and power buttons will be solid state now. Ooh, that's not what I said. And of course, we're going to increase the price by another $100. Thanks for your great ideas, Drew. It's not my fault. Well, we couldn't just have a good thing going, because more reports started dropping this week that kind of set in reality for us, as in Apple just can't have too much of a good thing. If they do something great, like switch to titanium or switch to Type-C, they have to also contrast it with some kind of controversial decision, because I think, honestly, being controversial is good for Apple's press. So, what this essentially means is based on latest reports from Shrimp Apple Pro, retweeting reports from Weibo, and basically CAD files that have been leaked through case manufacturers and stuff. They're saying that Apple is ditching the ringer switch, and I could not be more hopeful that this is not a real report. Unknowns on Twitter is saying that this doesn't sound right, so I'm really hopeful that he ends up being right, because while I'm not in favor of the ringer switch, like maybe it's because I have an Apple Watch, but I personally leave my phone on silent all the time. I don't like my phone making noise, so when people are like, I need to be able to quickly silence my phone in my pocket, I'm like, just always have it on silent. That's the solution, and I guess if you really care about it, you could go through Control Center, but even the people that really like having the ringer switch, I don't visualize them being so comfortable with a ringer button, especially a solid-state button, because it's still something else that now you have to feel for, and because you're just gonna push inward on it the same way you adjust volume, the same way you press your power button. How easy is it going to be for your finger to be reaching in your pocket and quickly silencing something, right? Plus, I'm still very concerned with this whole solid-state button approach when it comes to how cases are going to complement it, and I just keep wondering to myself, there's gotta be some kind of software feature that Apple is working on that makes these solid-state buttons start to make some sort of sense, because just for the sake of getting rid of physical buttons to replace them with solid-state just doesn't sound right to me. This seems like a solution looking for a problem, and probably just frustrating a lot of people overall. Plus, the volume rocker is one combined piece now, which in my head, that's gonna make it a lot harder to reach in your pocket and feel for, is this the volume rocker or is this the power button? Maybe you just have really good memory, so you know to always face the display outward, and the volume will always be on the left side and the power will be on the right side. But if you're these kinds of pro users, do you really need to be able to quickly mute your phone in your pocket? Personally, I'd be fine if they got rid of the ringer switch, period, but I don't want more buttons. I don't think we really need those, unless maybe in some way these buttons are going to be more mappable, like when you're in certain games or certain apps, the functionality of the buttons change, and maybe some of the buttons deactivate because they're solid state, so iOS could just say, ignore input from this button. It's kind of easy to forget that back in the iPhone 11 days, when Apple dropped the new smart battery cases, they had a photo button on those things. They were indented, but yeah, on an Apple-made smart battery case, you just click one button and it launches the camera. They never really went anywhere with that, but maybe if Apple's going ultra with the iPhones or something, it would make sense to have more customizable, mappable buttons. So maybe the ringer button is not just for ringer functionality, maybe you can map it to something else? I don't know if that makes the phone better. Personally, I just think it would look so much cleaner if we just had our volume rocker and our power button and that was it. But I know I'm biased. Most of you want your ringer switch for whatever reason. But if that didn't make matters worse, Jeff Poo, a supply chain analyst, is also pointing towards the concept of Apple raising prices on particularly the Pro series, which if we go back all the way to the iPhone 10 days, Apple has stayed mostly consistent with that pricing interesting. You know, when the iPhone 10 dropped in 2017, everyone thought, it's crazy, oh my god, $1,000 for a phone. And now, you know, most people have kind of just accepted that as pretty normal, and I'm pretty sure the $1,000 model has been the best seller. So 10S, also $1,000, 11 Pro, $1,000, 12 Pro, 13 Pro, 14 Pro, they've all stayed consistent over the past 6 years with that $1,000 price for the higher end model that is smaller. And Jeff is saying this is the first year that they'll actually stray away from that and increase the price for the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max, which in my head is kind of inevitable. I felt like we, at least in the United States, were lucky that we didn't get a price hike on the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max. Maybe Apple was worried or concerned that if they tried to increase prices last year during the high inflationary environment we're in, that would scare away too many buyers. But now that the 14 Plus and regular 14 are selling so incredibly poorly, Apple's probably thinking, okay, maybe we were a little too generous with the Pro options. And we had heard reports that Apple was hoping to increase the pricing structure of the iPhone lineup this year, and in my head, that doesn't mean that the entry-level iPhones get cheaper. No, of course, that means that the Pros get more expensive, and that way the regular iPhone 15 and 15 Plus will come across as a better deal, because now there's not like a $100 price gap between the Plus and the Pro. There will be more like a $200 price gap, and maybe since even the 15 Plus will have Dynamic Island and USB-C, and still the ringer switch, that's the kind of interesting part of this report. The solid-state volume rocker and power button plus ringer button, those are all rumored to be just on the Pros, not on the regular iPhone 15. So if you really like having a ringer switch and you don't mind having 60 hertz and a slower USB-C port, maybe the 15 Plus is gonna be a lot more popular this time around. So we'll see, but I think another inevitable cause to expect a price hike on the Pros this year is the switch to titanium. Titanium inherently is just a bit more expensive of a material than stainless steel, which is what they have been using. And even when Apple switched to titanium on the Apple Watches, it always came at a much higher price than the stainless steel option. So just for that fact alone, I think a price hike is very, very natural and probably to be expected this year. I will be shocked if they don't increase the price on the titanium models myself, but I think a really easy way for them to justify that, which I'm sure you're way ahead of me on, yeah, just double up the base storage. You know, it's been a while since Apple has included more storage on the Pro models. I think back in 2020 with the 12 Pros, they standardized 128 gigs, whereas the entry-level 12 and 12 mini still had 64. It's been about 3-ish years, which is typically when Apple starts changing up the storage again, and when it comes to the actual price of those NANDs, it's like nothing. There's like a couple of pennies difference between the 128 gig NAND and the 256 gig NAND, so to help ease that price hike, I think they could easily just standardize 256 gig even on the entry-level 15 Pro, and then people can make the argument that, well, there's not really a price hike, they just kind of got rid of the 128 gig NAND and forced everybody to upgrade. So now they can say 4K ProRes is a standard feature you don't have to pay extra for, but who knows, this is iPhone 15, it'll have a state-of-the-art camera system, so maybe they'll require you to get the 512 gig iPhone to access 8K ProRes or 4K at 60 ProRes or some stupid logic like that. But I would mention that if you're gonna have those higher speed USB-C ports exclusive to the Pros, it would make a lot more sense if those phones have more storage, so you can kind of import or drain all of the data off of those phones really quickly. Overall, none of these reports are convincing me that I need to upgrade from my iPhone 10. I'm still very curious to see how Apple is planning on introducing more solid-state buttons, and if they're gonna be like dynamic, you know, 3D touch, but on the sides. There's gonna be some trick up Apple's sleeves about this. I'll just be very surprised if it ends up being, we just felt like switching them to solid state for some reason. But what do you guys think the reason is? Do you think there's any logic to switching to a ringer button instead of a ringer switch? Because I'm not in favor of that personally. But all that good stuff, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.